Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Check Up with Chris Bolton. Of course, it's your boy, Chris Bolton, back at it again. And we have a special guest with us, my boy, Mo Murphy, with the UpNFlamez Podcast. You know what I'm saying? Hey, this is family right here. This is my boy, part of OTB Network, Off the Ball. You know what I'm saying? It's the VP. We got the man in the house with us. You know what I'm saying? This is the VP. It's my boy. What's up with him, Mo?
Hey, man, I appreciate you having me on, man. I'm definitely excited to talk with you. I had you on my show. That was a great show, so I'm definitely looking forward to getting on with you and talking hoops.
Oh, yeah, man. This has been making, in the making for a minute. Like you said, I was on your show. We've been chopping it up. We've been playing 2K together. We said, you got to get you on my show, so that's what we're doing right now. So, man, we're going to have a good time. But, hey, just how everything been with you, bro?
Good, recovering from this broken ankle. So, easing off of crutches right now. So everything been good.
Them crutches got you working, man.
Yeah, man. My arms getting strong. Legs weak. Arms strong, though.
We swole for it's all said and done.
Yeah.
But, shoot, let's go ahead and get straight into it. Like you said, we're going to chop it up, talk about basketball. So the big news, we've been seeing the tweets, seeing the reports. Like, things are ramping up when it comes to James Harden possibly getting traded soon. Of course, we saw Shams. He reported that Ben Simmons has been rumored to be made available in trade talks for Philly, possibly trying to acquire James Harden. What you think about that? The Philly side of things. How you think this is maybe going to play out?
Well, we discussed this a while back when you was on my show. And we talked about where we would like to see him and what trade made sense. And, I was high on Philly. And I think the Ben Simmons in Houston and James Harden in Philly would be a perfect match for both teams, both players. I don't know if Philly is going to do it because I'm starting to catch the sense that they want more than just Ben Simmons.
Right.
And if I'm Philly, the most Ben Simmons in a first-round pick. It's not like, it's not like the Paul George trade where I'm giving up my whole future in mid-level, maybe above average players. I'm giving you another star, a young star. Harden's 31. Ben Simmons is what, 23, 24?
You about to say, I think he's 24. Yeah, I think he's 24. Yeah. He's 24.
So he about there. And we know what Ben Simmons is now. He's an all-star player. We know what Ben Simmons – exactly. And we know what he could be. He could be a superstar. He needs a jump shot. There's a lot of things we can weigh on what he needs to improve. But ultimately, where he's at right now, he's an all-NBA player, and we're still critiquing his improvements. So just imagine if he takes that next step with that jump shot and is deadly from 15 feet. You talk about really having, Ben Simmons, he has a game like LeBron James. He don't have the jumper of Luka, but those three guys have the same type of game. They can score at will, They're great passers, willing passers. On top of that, they don't mind sharing the ball, and they also big guys. Ben Simmons, 6'9", 6'10".
Yeah.
He's a 6'9", 6'10" point guard. Same way LeBron James is. Same way Luka is. Typically they're not the primary point guard. Luka has been, and LeBron took that role this year. But I think a Ben Simmons and maybe a first-round pick at most for James Harden straight up would be an ideal trade. And I think Ben Simmons, he needs a change of scenery also. I think he's a little unhappy in Philly. Him and Embiid ain't really getting along well. And I think Harden could make him take that next step. But I also think, if I'm going to give up Harden, I need something that's going to secure me for the future. And at the very least, we know you could build around Ben Simmons.
Definitely. And judging by what, Houston talking, man, they said we need about 3 of them things. We need 3 first-round picks and Ben Simmons. That's a lot. That's a lot. I know you're getting the MVP player, but still, that when like you already mentioned, you're getting a young upcoming star. I think the limit might be 2 picks. We can do Ben Simmons, of course, the contract, some other guys, maybe a Mike Scott or whatever, to to make the money work. But at the end of the day, I might get 2 first-round picks, but 3 of them, that is tough. Now. We've been seeing, a lot of reports lately too, just kind of talking about James Harden. He's very upset with the ownership and just how he pretty much ran the organization before the new people came in place. Had a whole bunch of special perks and privileges, and just really, just seem like people just trying to talk down on his name. What you making about these narratives that have been thrown out there about James?
To be honest, usually I'm on the player's side. And for the most part, I feel like, if a player's unhappy and he wants to leave, I know you have contract obligations, but sometimes guys don't sign that 5-year deal planning on staying 5 years. He's a superstar. So he has things that he has to do to build a legacy and continue his legacy. But as far as like his character, I mean, look at him. He's came back. He's out of shape. He's put on some pounds.
He's looking a little thick. I ain't gonna lie.
And that's the point, is like he's put on some pounds. And it doesn't look like healthy weight. He's got a little bit bigger, in the arms and shoulder area. But he also he put on some weight. He got a little dad bod going on. And
he said he's gonna play himself into shape this preseason, which that's what some of the vets do.
Yeah, but it's different when you're ranting and raving about skinny Harden coming into the bubble, and then a few months later, we got dad bod Harden talking about I'm gonna whip it back up into shape.
He went from looking like Moses to like you said, dad bod.
Yeah, and so I mean, to me that just means that's a star that wasn't focused in the offseason. I understand, you got to enjoy yourself, but Harden isn't Dennis Rodman. Like, you know what I mean? And, I feel like that's the comparison. Dennis Rodman could catch a flight, go gamble in Vegas, come back the same night and play the game, show up late, whatever, but he'd be in the game, and he had a role. Rodman had a different role. Rodman wasn't the guy. He was the third option with in Chicago with Jordan and Pippen. And so that does make a difference in the type of player that you need. And James Harden is a guy, he's a 30-plus point per game a year for the past 3 years. So he's a scoring bucket, which means you got to be in shape. And then his focus hasn't been there. He's making all this noise. He's not happy in Houston or not happy with the organization, but then he's out partying with Lil Baby, and, they're at all the strip clubs. Baby. They're bouncing back between Atlanta and Vegas. Yeah. And so, that's fun and all. But at the end of the day, like, you are an NBA player, and, you kind of letting it show you're kind of being unprofessional about it. But I don't want to knock Harden. I still like Harden as a player. I still think he's a great guy. I just think he's going about this situation wrong, but I don't think it should damage his reputation overall, because we know what he is. He's never been a problem up to this point. He's never been a bad guy. There's never really been negative talks about Harden and his antics in the media. So, he's just one situation, but all it takes, what they say is, like, once you mess up once, that takes all the good jobs away. So, people are going to remember this situation. He's going to leave Houston. Like you said, the talks are ramping up. I think he's going to leave Houston with a bad taste in everybody's mouth around the league. A lot of reporters and things like that are going to have negative things to say about the breakup between James Harden and Houston, especially because it seemed like up until now, Harden and Houston was a match made in heaven, regardless of championships or anything else.
No, that's a good point. I mean, you talk about Rodman and everything. We can also, not to compare him to Michael Jordan, but in this sense, MJ was somebody who would be out there, late at night, gambling, doing his thing. But it didn't stop MJ from being MJ. MJ's a different breed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We've seen Harden, he likes to turn up. He hits the club. He does his thing. He has fun. And the regular season, he balls out, has MVP-like stats. But in the playoffs, he kind of falls short. And so that's the thing. That's the difference between him and MJ. We didn't have that problem with MJ. It didn't matter what game it was. It'd be game 1 of the preseason, or it could be game 6. I ain't gonna say game 7 in the finals, because MJ didn't see a game 7 in the finals. But it could be game 6 in the finals, and he was gonna come with it. So Harden probably does need to make a change as being that lead guy that he's probably gonna be on the team to continue to have his fun, but also reel it in and really have himself together and be that lead example for the rest of the guys.
Yeah, and that's you saying that made me think, and like with the Philly trade, the only way I'd be hesitant is with him in Philly, matched up with Joel Embiid, is I think Joel Embiid needs a guy who's going to be an example, because Joel Embiid is another guy who gets knocked as far as he's not focused. Right. He doesn't work that hard. It doesn't seem like Harden, I don't want to say he doesn't work hard, because you have to work hard to be that good. But if you have other distractions, Embiid probably can't do that. Like, Embiid couldn't live that same lifestyle, have those same distractions, and then go out there and drop 30. Well, that's what Harden is doing. But ultimately, if you're bringing in a superstar, a veteran superstar, such as James Harden, a top 5 player, in my opinion, I just don't think that'll be the greatest example. But on the court, I think it'll be a perfect match.
Now, this is where it gets kind of interesting because we mentioned how Houston, they really ain't budging. They really want, they want Ben, and it's been mentioned that they want 3 picks. If you're Philly, do you almost have to pull the trigger on that? Like, just looking at the history of the NBA with trades made that a team gets the best player, all throughout the history, we've seen Wilt Chamberlain be traded and it turned into a championship for the Lakers. We've seen Kareem and what happened when, he left the Bucks and got to the Lakers and they continue to win. Other trades throughout the NBA, the league history, where if that team acquires the best guy, Charles Barkley got to the Suns. Only reason he doesn't have a ring is because the guy we just mentioned, Michael Jordan. That was a really good Suns team that challenged them. Teams, when they bring in an MVP type player, the best talent, they get the best guy out the deal. We just saw it this past season with the Lakers. They got Anthony Davis out of the deal and it turned into a chip for them. Do you let one draft pick stop you from bringing in an MVP talent?
It becomes a tough question because there's two ways that could go. And no, I don't want to let one draft pick short me of a championship. But we're talking about with Philly, it seems like we're talking about Ben Simmons. And that's my biggest thing is I value Ben Simmons higher than a lot of people as far as I still have the hope that he takes his all-star level play and becomes a superstar and a top 5 player in the league. He's only 24, 25 years old. However old he is, he's very young, hasn't hit his prime yet. And so it's a steep price. That's a really steep price.
For sure.
For if Harden was 28, 29 years old, it'd be way different. But them 2 to 3 years of him being 31 is a game changer. Everybody's not going to be LeBron James and be the best player in the league at 34, 35 years old. Everybody's not going to remain and keep their reign at where they're at. Harden's a top 5 player in the league.
And we see now he doesn't take care of his body the same way LeBron does. LeBron ain't gonna come
exactly
he's overweight like this,
Exactly, and who's to say, because the difference between your LeBrons and your KDs is those guys remained at the top of their game, and the young stars, the Hardens, the Westbrooks, the guys coming right behind them, and even to go a little bit back, the Bradley Beals and the guys that are 27, 20. They never were able to be good enough to overpass those guys. Where Harden could be passed with Luka coming up, Jason Tatum coming up. You got Donovan Mitchell. There's enough guys that by the time Harden 33, 34, these guys are going to be entering their prime. Some of them are going to be superstars, top 5 level talent and be 24, 25 years old. Jason Tatum, a prime example. In 2 years, he's going to be 25, still not hitting his prime. Guys don't really hit their 19. Prime. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's the joke on Twitter. Everybody say Jason Tatum's still 19.
And he just shot up to 6'10". But the difference is some of these stars, these future superstars, these all-star guys, the younger guys, could overtake James Harden and easily they're on his tail of bouncing him out of the top 5 now.
Right.
So, in 2 to 3 years when he's 34 years old, if his body isn't the same at all, if he takes a 5% drop-off, that might be enough for Harden to be out looking on the outside in, being a top 10 player. And so, therefore, I don't have the same value in 2 to 3 years. And that could be at the very time where I might win a championship. But what if I trade Ben Simmons and he becomes the superstar top 5 player that everyody was expecting coming into the league?
Our decade, yeah.
Exactly. Or the new LeBron James or the next Luka, he's very comparable to what Luka is, even without the jump shot. Then it's I could have won a few more championships if I was able to develop Ben Simmons into this. And they also have Doc Rivers. And so that's a difference in maybe Ben Simmons needed a change of culture, but they got the culture change bringing in Doc Rivers. So I don't know I think if I'm Philly, there's no rush. I don't need Harden. I have Simmons, I have Embiid, but I do think that if I'm Houston, I'm locking in on Philly just because I think, you're going to get into it and make me really think about the deeper and 3-team trades or whatever. But I think a straight-up trade would be Philly has the best option because all these other teams have already given out their untouchables. And Boston's not giving up Jason Tatum. Miami's not giving up Jimmy or Bam. I doubt like Denver's giving up Jokic.
Right.
So, I'm pretty sure anybody, and I'm almost willing to say Jamal Murray is probably right there as far as an untouchable. The way he's coming off the bubble, his momentum within that organization. A lot of teams, they all have the untouchables. And so that's why I think if Ben Simmons is becoming available, or we'll include him in talks to see if we can meet in the middle on a deal, then that's why I think maybe Philly should go ahead and do it. But if I'm Philly, I'm not giving up Ben Simmons and 3 first-round picks. That's too much for a 31-year-old James Harden.
I feel it. The only reason I feel like I think I might pull the trigger on is because factoring in Embiid, I just don't know how long Embiid's going to be Embiid. I know he's been healthy. You know what I'm saying? He's been healthy these last few years. But do we really expect his level of play to continue to age well? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? 7-footers don't necessarily stay healthy. We see KP, Porzingis over in Dallas. He has his issues staying healthy.
Yep.
Say Embiid couldn't be the same way. So that's why I say you might have to bite down on it and go ahead and jump on that deal and maybe make it happen if you're Philly. And I anticipate it happening. I anticipate them to go ahead and making a trade, and that's what's going to happen.
But I feel like another question you got to ask yourself is, do you think Philly with Harden and Embiid in that trade scenario, do you think they're better than the Lakers?
I don't.
Or the Clippers?
If the Clippers make it to the finals, I think they could be the Clippers.
Because my thing is if you don't think this puts you, at least in your mind, you have to convince yourself. It doesn't what we say, but if you don't think this makes you the best team in the Eastern Conference, which I still don't think Philly. I think they could reach the finals. I wouldn't be surprised, but I couldn't hands down deem myself with Harden and Embiid the best team in the Eastern Conference, which means I'm giving up that steep price and I'm not guaranteeing myself a championship. I'm hoping it becomes a Wilt Chamberlain trade scenario. I'm hoping it becomes a Kareem to the Lakers scenario, but it's not a guarantee. I don't think Philly with Harden, with trading Simmons for Harden, is a lot to even make it out of the Eastern Conference, let alone winning a championship. So that's why I would be hesitant on pulling the trigger on something that steep, because I'm giving up my future. And the whole thing is, part of my future is I have a player, Ben Simmons. How do you build around the guy? In free agency and draft picks. And so ultimately, they won't be a bad team to be a lottery. They won't be a lottery pick. They won't be a lottery team. I still think that team with that trade right now, Houston makes the playoffs, maybe 6th or 7th seed. I think Houston with Harden makes the playoffs this year. I think they're locked in the playoffs in my eyes. A lot of people have Houston, even with Harden returning outside, but, they're built with one-year contracts.
He's an MVP.
Exactly. And they have a nice team, but they're built with like 1 year. Like they have John Wall, who's a steep price. He's got a couple years left, but they signed Boogie for 1 year. They do have Christian Wood, but at the same time, if I'm trading for Simmons, I'm trading to ultimately build around my team. But if I'm Philly, like when Harden leaves me, I'm almost left with nothing, because like you said, when Harden depletes, Embiid might not be there either. And now I'm left with nothing. Yeah. Now I'm left with in between the time where my best player is an Andre Iguodala type player, where he's really good. He could be a bottom tier all-star, but he's never going to get me to anywhere than, if I'm lucky, outside of the first round of the playoffs. And so, you do got to think down the line. And those 3 draft picks, granted, they won't be lottery picks, but look at the talent that's developing over these next few years. Look at what's in high school. You got your guys. You got Mikey Williams. You got Imani Bates. You got I forgot the 7-footer. You got Bronny.
Right.
You got Bronny coming into the league. Like, so if you look at all the high school talent that's projected to be in the league in the next few years, you're giving up your chance on even having any one of those guys. And so I just don't know if I want to give up my whole future for a 31-year-old Harden, who's already kind of showing that he may not be 100% committed.
Yeah. It's a go big or go home move. I feel like you have to strike and win in a 3-year window if you make this move. You got 3
And that's tough.
I think
that's tough because Brooklyn is in that same 3-year window. I think LA, the Lakers are in that same 3-year window.
Yep.
If Kawhi stays with the Clippers are in that 3-year window, and so is Giannis in Milwaukee.
Right.
I know we gonna get into
Golden
his contract
Golden
situation,
State
but
might have 2 years, you know what I'm saying, with Steph, Curry, and Clay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of guys, or you got a lot of teams that are in this same 3-year window that are going to do whatever it takes to get a championship. And up to this point, guys are still taking less to go play with LeBron. We've seen it with able to get Montrezl Harrell and Marc Gasol and Wesley Matthews. And, they pulled off the trade for Dennis Schroeder. Guys are willing to still go and play with LeBron, especially with the Lakers and LeBron showing that he can win a championship. I don't think guys will take less to go play with Philly. They're not even taking less to go play in the other locker room in LA, which is a sought-after destination for free agency. Guys aren't even going to the Clippers to go play with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George because they have culture issues. And so there's a slight possibility if you can't get any of those mid-level or even, old veterans to come join you to continue to build those one-year deals,
right,
then ultimately Philly will fail, and then you'll give up Ben Simmons, and don't let Ben Simmons turn out to be the superstar that we expected coming into the league, because now you're going to be sitting here, I got no championships out of it. I got a bunch of jersey sales with Harden and Philly, but I got no championships out of it. I just got a little bit of victory and had, a story to tell.
Right. The thing is, man, it's tough because I feel like Ben has to get out of Philly the way they're constructed for him to really spread his wings and become that guy. You know what I'm saying? It's a double-edged sword because, you bring in Harden. I really think, I'm not going to say they automatically become the favorite to win. But I can see why they can convince themselves of making that move. You bring in a guy who arguably, real talk, if we be real, Harden had 3 MVPs right now.
Yeah.
He could have 3 MVPs. That year in 2015 when Steph won his first one, Harden had a good case to win MVP that year. And he ends up getting his one. And he also lost to Westbrook. And I think Harden had a good case to win it over Westbrook, even though Westbrook had the triple-double. Harden, the way he was playing that year, really, he really led that team, and he really had more of an impact on winning besides the numbers with that team.
Yeah, and they were the better team. That was the other thing, was Houston was better, but the story behind Westbrook was, all the sympathy with KD leaving and things like that, and then for him to be the first person to average a triple-double since Oscar Robertson, that was the big deal. Like, he had the story. He had the case, and they did make it to the playoffs. So ultimately, I mean, Harden could have 3. He has a case for everyone he lost. He has a case that he could have won. Even last year when Giannis won, Harden had a case to win MVP last year. So he definitely had a case in every year that he lost. We could argue that Harden easily could have won. So, but he is, like I said, to me, he's a top 5 player in the league. Even with KD returning, even with Steph returning, I don't think that bounces Harden out of the top 5. I think he's been a top 5 player in the league the past few years, right there, with LeBron and Giannis and Kawhi and KD anyway. So it's tough because LeBron is almost giving a lot of people around the league false hope that guys can be at the top of their game at their age. But like you mentioned, LeBron takes care of his body differently than everybody else does. LeBron has a different focus, and LeBron is chasing GOAT status. Harden will never get there. There's no chance of him being considered the GOAT of anything, especially being the shooting guard. He will never pass Kobe or Jordan at his own position. Harden will never be able to chase GOAT status. KD will never be able to chase GOAT status. That's what LeBron's chasing, so he has a different focus. So there's a reason why coming into year 18, a lot of us still have him as the best player in the league. You're not going to have Harden at year 18 being a top 5 player in the league. I don't see it.
Got his own thing he's chasing too, man. He want a ring. I'm pretty sure he wants a ring. He wants to get everybody off his ass because if we keep it a buck, he's just a hamstring away from having a championship, I think. I think if, Chris Paul doesn't get hurt, they beat Golden State, they beat my Warriors. And I think we can talk hypotheticals all day. Man, I think they probably go ahead and they beat Cleveland in the finals, hypothetically.
And that's where I think different is where I think LeBron James was a hamstring injury away from having 5 right now. Because I think LeBron, just the way Houston plays, I think LeBron and them would have been able to play with Houston. I think it would have been a 6-7 game series.
Been a
but
I
feel like Cleveland would have been able to actually get that one out. The way LeBron was playing that year, LeBron was playing out of his mind. It just he ran into the wall with Golden State.
Against that game one, that finals, that might be the best game of his life.
Right. And they win. If they play Houston and he has 51, they win that game. They possibly win that game by double digits. It possibly wouldn't have been a game and came down to free throws and, J.R. Henny Smith doing what he did, So that's my thing about it. But, I mean, it very well, Houston also, they had a chance of winning the championship that year. But even still, like, he's chasing a ring. But it's very simple to chase a ring nowadays. Yeah. I think him wanting to go to the Nets is him chasing a ring. Maybe this will be the easiest route. I get with Kyrie and KD. We'll be unstoppable. In his mind, that's chasing a ring. But it makes it harder going to Philly. You still got to be that guy, but everybody's hoping him and Embiid work together.
I don't want to see these guys just hop on board with all these other guys and try to make something shake. Now, let's go into some of the other deals. We've talked about the Philly thing. Let's talk about some other deals that I've cooked up. I've been playing with the trade machine, trying to see what I can make happen. And tell me what you think. I don't know if these deals are going to go down, if they're going to happen. I'm not predicting that. But just what you think of them. Now, Denver. They try to get their way into things. That's a team. They have a lot of guys that are very deep. They can really afford to make a move. They almost need to make a move. They have I like to say they have a lot of low spades. They got some really good guys, of course, with Jokic and Murray. But they have a whole lot of very good guys, a bunch of low spades, and they need to make a move. So let's say they give up MPJ, Michael Porter Jr., so who are a lot of people very high on, a very young player. When he was coming out of high school, the number one guy in his class. The only thing that's held him down was injuries, and now he's healthy. People expect him to make a leap this year. You have Gary Harris and Will Barton, and first, picks. I don't know how many picks, but, throw in some first-round picks. Those two guys with Harris and Barton, and then the centerpiece, MPJ.
Oh, I think you giving up 3 first-round picks with that. I think you giving up 3 players and 3 first-round picks for that because there's still questions about MPJ. MPJ really bust out on the scene in the bubble, but so did Jamal Murray. So did the Miami Heat and Tyler Hero. So did TJ Warren. So, I don't want to hold too much value on what guys did in the bubble because it was a different scenario. There was really a no-pressure situation with no fans. No away games where, all that factors in the travel and the away games and fans. And even this year, we won't really see fans everywhere. Some stadiums might have them. Some stadiums might not. Similar to the NFL. But the travel and the turnaround time of having to go, we played in San Francisco and Golden State this night, and then we traveled to New York and we played the Knicks and the Nets. We played in Cali on Tuesday, and then on Thursday and Friday we play in New York. That does a wear and tear on people's mental. They be physically tired, so that does make a difference. But I think if those 3 guys, Houston might send a message like they're rebuilding. They're going to want 3 first-round picks. If I'm Denver, I might pull the trigger on that if that's the asking price. Those 3 guys at 3 first-round picks because if I get to keep Jamal Murray and Jokic and have James Harden, now we're talking about, that's a deadly big 3.
Yeah, that's a team.
They could very well be competitive.
The favorite, low-key.
It's just tough to put them over the favorite when we know that LeBron is still the best player in the league in the Western Conference, and we know that Anthony Davis might be a top 5 player in the league. It's tough to make them favorites because Jamal Murray is another guy. He has to do it again. He's not going to have that opportunity in a small sample size of 8 games to score 50 points and, finish in the bubble with 30 points a game in the 8 regular season games. It's going to be a lot bigger sample size with 72 games this year. Hopefully we're getting back to the 82 games, or maybe we continue with 72. They've been pitching the play less anyway. But I think that'd be something to consider. But I also think Houston could do better.
That's true. So I'll have another trade. We're gonna ship James to the East Coast, to the to the Eastern Conference. But this time it ain't gonna be to Philly. I have them a Boston trade. We got Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, Romeo Langford, and picks.
See, now with Boston, that trade, I want Jaylen Brown and Kemba Walker. If I'm Houston, I'll take Jaylen Brown, Kemba Walker, Langford, and picks. And now that's steep, but if their asking price seems steep, I think I'd want Kemba Walker over Marcus.
Because Kemba has his own issues too. At least with Marcus, he ain't the player Kemba is at full strength. But we see Kemba, they worried about his knee, being like degenerative. He got the stem cell treatment this off season. So that's why I throw Marcus Smart in the mix. And then you get a centerpiece with Jaylen Brown, someone who can just – he hasn't been on his own team yet, averaged 20 points per game last season. You give him a chance to be that franchise guy, almost kind of in a sense, stepping into the same role Harden had and finally getting to, spread his wings and be that man. What you think? You know what I'm saying? Would you make that deal happen both sides?
If I'm Houston, yeah, I would do that trade. If I'm Houston, I'd do that trade. I don't think it'd be an A grade for Houston. Mm-hmm. I think it'd be an A for Boston, A minus for Boston, and I think it would be like a B minus to B grade for Houston for the simple fact, like, we don't know if Jaylen Brown can be the best player. We say, like, yeah, he was the second fiddle to Jason Tatum and also had Gordon Hayward and Kemba, and he averaged 20 points a game. But he averaged 20 points a game being as good as he is with also teams having to worry about – he's not getting their best defender. He's good enough to do that on somebody's third best defender, even possibly sometimes fourth best defender. And I think that makes a difference. So if I'm Houston, I would do it if that's my best trade offer. And I mean, obviously, any trade offer, you'll be like, that has to be the best one. But I think there will be another team. There'll be a possibility that another team could do a little bit better than that. Like I said, I'm big on if Philly is willing to cough up Ben Simmons in a draft pick or two. I'm big on pulling the trigger on that one. I don't really know. To me personally, I don't really know if there's another trade package better than getting Ben Simmons in return for James Harden.
I don't think so either. Now, from Boston's standpoint, how do you feel, that would work out for them? Because there's a lot of Boston fans you check on Twitter. They don't want to split up JB and Tatum. They love JB and Tatum. So, and I know Harden and Tatum, it's not an ideal fit. But, man, I mean, as talented as those two guys are, I wouldn't be stunned to fit.
Yeah, but sometimes you have to, because I'd hesitate giving up JB and Tatum because they fit together and they're young. And, everybody's hesitant on – you can't measure the success of a guy like LeBron and say guys are going to be this good, this old. And so that's my biggest thing. And, I don't want to give up you won't be giving up your future because you'll always have it, Jason Tatum. Mm-hmm. He signed that extension. And Jaylen Brown also has gotten an extension. But it's just it's tough because I know JB and Tatum work together. And maybe I think those two just need – Boston's a center away from arguably being the best team in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah.
I thought if they would have pulled off the Gordon Hayward for Miles Turner trade, I thought that would have put Boston right at the top of the Eastern Conference. And you can make a case that you'll take Miami or Milwaukee over them. But ultimately, I would have liked the Kemba Walker and Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum with Miles Turner. I would have liked that team to possibly come out the Eastern Conference.
They're my sleeper team to come out the East, even though they haven't made that move. I think Tatum might make that leap this year. You know what I'm saying? He's my MVP dark horse. Yeah,
but even if he makes that leap, it's just tough without a big man. Even if he takes that next step, which I assume he will, he's only getting better. But they are missing a center. Even if he takes that next step and you're looking at what is Boston missing, why is Jason Tatum a superstar and they're not getting the job done with as good a talent they have around them? They don't have a big man. You don't need Joel Embiid. You don't need Jokic, but a Miles Turner would have fit perfect with that team, especially their style of play. I think he would have had no problem meshing with that Boston team. So, but I mean, with Harden, it's just his age is a little why maybe his value, Houston is overvaluing him because, yes, he is a top 5 player right now, but they're looking at basically teams giving up their future because Houston wants to continue to have a future with Harden.
That's the price, baby.
Gone.
You trying to get somebody who's going to help you win a title right now, so we need your future. And I feel what they're saying. You know what I'm saying? I feel where they're coming from. So,
yeah.
Another trade that I have, I don't think this one, of course, this ain't going to happen, but it worked out on the trade machine, is Portland. You have CJ, Zach Collins, Simons, Nazir Little, and picks to bring in Harden to be with Dame.
Nah, if I'm Portland, I love it. If I'm Houston, I hate it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, like, if I'm Portland, I love that trade. If I can link Lillard and Harden together and keep Nurkic, and then, they also added Robert Covington, that would be a team that they get to keep Melo. That would be a team. They may not continue to be as deep, but and then you didn't mention Gary Trent Jr. in that trade, right?
Nope, I mentioned.
So if I get to keep all that,
mm-hmm.
if I'm Portland, I get to keep all that. I would offer that easily, and if Houston accepted it, I think Houston would be crazy. I don't think McCollum and Wall. I still think they'd be competitive, but at that point, I think, that's a trade that's taking Houston out of the playoffs. I'm not sure if that team constructed with that Portland trade even makes the playoffs.
I got you.
And with Houston, like the Rockets, they have a great fan base, and like not making the playoffs is not okay in Houston. Like, especially just look at the greats they've had come through there with, Hakeem Olajuwon, and
mm-hmm.
They won championships. They had Tracy McGrady and Yao Ming. And, in between that time and getting James Harden was kind of their down period. And they weren't happy. They weren't happy as a fan base. And so I don't think nobody in Houston would love that trade, including anybody in the organization. I think at that point, if that trade was able to happen, it'd be because everybody kind of gave up, and that's the best I could get. And that'll be because everybody interested in Harden just gave up because Houston, their asking price is way too high, and Portland jumped in there. Like, you know what? This is what we're willing to give up because everybody else gave up.
I got you. Yeah. That's a good point. It's a valid point. Now I got one last one. It's my mega deal I've been working on. I ain't seen nobody come up with this one. I just was playing around, you know what I'm saying? Just seeing what I can make shape. Tell me what you think.
Mm-hmm.
We got the Rockets, we got the Raptors, and we got the Pacers. That's a 3-team deal. Of course, the Raptors are going to be the one getting James Harden in this trade.
Mm-hmm.
So we got James Harden, TJ McConnell going to Toronto. Houston gets Victor Oladipo, Miles Turner, Norm Powell, Malachi Flynn, and picks.
Mm-hmm.
The Pacers get Kyle Lowry, PJ Tucker, OG Anunoby, Gerald Green.
Oh. Woo. That's a lot of names.
A lot of names.
So Houston gets who? Oladipo,
Miles Turner, Norm Powell, and Malachi Flynn, who's been playing well in the preseason. The good, the point guard from San Diego State, the rookie for the Raptors. Mm-hmm. He's been playing very nice. And first-round picks. We'll just say a couple, at least 2 first-round picks.
Outside of Philly, I think that would be the best deal. If Houston could pull that off and be able to get that in return, I think that would be a good deal. You said the Pacers get who? They get Kyle Lowry and who?
PJ Tucker, OG Anunoby, and Gerald Green. Lowry's on a 1-year deal. PJ has 1 year left. OG has 1 year left, but you would probably re-sign him since he's younger and you want to build around him. And Gerald Green has 1 year.
I think that's a great deal, but I think the Pacers all completely lose out of that deal.
You think so?
I think, because I get Kyle Lowry, like you said, on a 1 year deal. He's older. I get OG But, like, that's not anybody. I'm giving up Oladipo and Miles Turner. So who do I really – Pacers don't have anybody to build around at that point.
You try to build around. You already have Warren and Sabonis. You see what you have with OG. And the thing is with Oladipo, I'm pretty sure everybody around the league probably already knows it. I don't think he's coming back to Indy. So if you could flip him and get – even though Kyle Lowry's probably going to be a rental, if you can flip him and Turner and bring in OG and see what you got with him, it ain't a bad deal. You know what I'm saying?
It's not a bad deal. It's just – I think, like, I would give Toronto A, I would give Houston an A, and I would give Indy, like, a B- on that trade. Maybe even C+. Like, I think, like, I would give – if Houston gets Harden and ultimately Harden and Siakam, I think that'll be a nice duo also.
And Van Vliet.
Houston – yeah, and Van Vliet. So I think Toronto will benefit a lot from that. Obviously, anybody benefits from getting James Harden. And then they don't give up. Toronto doesn't really give up a lot. Like, yeah, they give up Lowry, but when you look at, okay, I'm giving up Lowry, Powell, and OG. I'm giving up Flynn, but at the end of the day, he is a rookie. He looks good in the preseason, but he is a rookie. So I'm okay with knowing that I gave up somebody, and if he turns out to be good, cool. If he turns out to be bad, it was a perfect trade. It was one of those, he's just a rookie. So that's not a bad deal for Toronto at all. And I think they could make some shake in the Eastern Conference with having Van Vliet, Harden, and Pascal Siakam. And then I think Houston gets a lot in return because whether you think Oladipo is the same Oladipo or whatever, you also get Miles Turner with – remember that they have John Wall. Okay, you give up PJ Tucker, but you still have Eric Gordon. You still keep Daniel House. You still have Christian Wood. You have Boogie on a one-year deal. And who knows, if that team becomes successful, I think Boogie's really looking for a home. And so I don't think he's going to continue to sign one-year deals. And if that Houston team could be very successful, the only problem is 3 of their best players are injury-riddled guys with John Wall, Oladipo and Boogie, those would be 3 of their best players. But if that team is healthy, I think that Houston team, they go to the playoffs. They don't ruin their chance of going to the playoffs. And I think they get about the same amount of success as they will with Harden staying in Houston for the simple fact, I don't think Houston going to the Western Conference Finals.
The analysis of that deal was to happen. They say the Rockets lose 8 wins. So they get 8 more losses than what they would normally get with Harden, which isn't too bad when you think about losing the MVP. You know what I'm saying? If you to only become a 8, to lose 8.
But even weighing in the fact of how John Wall looks, he looks healthy. Now, granted, he could get injured, but he looks healthy at the end of the day. And we know what a healthy John Wall is. Boogie looks healthy. We know what a healthy Boogie, even if they don't return to their solidify all-star form, I do think like John Wall is a really good player, healthy right now. I think Boogie is a really good player, healthy right now. And you add Oladipo and Miles Turner, you remain deep. You add Powell, and you got a rookie in Malachi Flynn. Like you said, he looks good. He's coming off the bench on that team, along with Eric Gordon and Daniel House, and 1, if not 2 of which, but between Boogie, Miles Turner, and Christian Wood. Matter of fact, you could start Christian Wood at the 4. You could start Turner at the 5 and bring Boogie off just to continue to keep him healthy, kind of minimize his minutes a little bit until you know for sure that he's ready to rock and roll, get back into the flow of things of the regular season. I think Houston ultimately wins that deal, but I think Toronto's right behind them when you look at how good Van Vliet really is with the improvement of him over the past couple of years. Van Vliet is really good and a starting point guard on most teams. And then let alone, with Pascal Siakam.
Siakam working at pick and roll together.
And we know how good Pascal Siakam has become. He's a bona fide all-star at this point. I expect nothing less than all-star numbers from Siakam. And then Harden, and they would love Harden in Toronto. They would love Harden in Toronto. You know how Toronto is when they get stars. Vince Carter. They loved Vince Carter. Absolutely loved Vince Carter. He hated to have to leave Toronto. The minute they got Kawhi Leonard, they loved Kawhi Leonard. Even though they loved that duo of Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan. But they also got tired of them being so great in the regular season and then losing to LeBron James every year. That gets tiresome. And it's like, as much as we love those guys, man, we got to get better. And they accepted Kawhi Leonard with open arms. Toronto will love to have Kawhi Leonard.
Point to why I think this trade, it sounds crazy, but it also is realistic. I think could happen because
it's not as crazy as it sounds. If you really know ball, it's not really crazy.
Yeah,
it's just a lot.
DeRozan, Toronto got tired of losing and having that DeRozan-Lowry backcourt. So they said, well, shoot, no. Kawhi Leonard's available? Yeah, okay, we'll hop in and take him. We'll take the chance. And this is a team, after this season, they're going to lose Lowry. They're going to lose that money. They're going to be kind of in a position where they're rebuilding. And not too many free agents are going to Toronto. You know what I'm saying? So if they can make another trade and bring in another top-tier guy, even if it is for a few years, why not?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing is like it prolongs the rebuild mode. And, you know, their GM, you know how great he is making moves. Like he's up there with the Pat Rileys and you know, a couple of the other guys. But he's arguably one of the best GMs in the league, if not the best. With what he's made shake. Yeah, with what he's made shake and how sought after he's been, you know how good he is. But I think, and I think even after the Harden era would end in Toronto, he would figure out how to. He would figure out to make something else.
You saw the clip on Twitter probably a few weeks ago. That draft, the Giannis draft, they had a deal in place to try to get Giannis to be able to draft him. You know what I'm saying? That lets you know he knows what he's doing when it comes to scouting players and peeping talent.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's a really good trade. And like I said, outside of all the other ones we talked about, outside of the Philly trade, I think that would be the best one. And it'd make the most sense for all parties involved. My only thing with Indiana is like where Indiana gets left out with, to me, is where do you rebuild? Like you said, you got Sabonis. They
might have a solid lineup for this season. They'll have Lowry, Brogdon, OG, TJ Warren, Sabonis.
Yeah, I forgot about Brogdon. That's a guy I forgot about. Oh, you know what? I love that trade. Not because I forgot about Brogdon. I love that trade. I really forgot about Brogdon. I'm not as high on TJ Warren. Yeah, he came into the bubble. He came fire hot. But like I said, some of these guys that came in fire hot, if they run it back this regular season and do close to the same thing, I don't think TJ Warren going to average about 27 points a game this year. But if he looks as dominant scoring the ball as he did in the bubble, then, you know, I give it to him. He made that step, that leap. And we see how good Indiana was without, Oladipo or Sabonis in the bubble. Like, and Oladipo finally came back, but he wasn't the same Oladipo. So we see how good they were. But ultimately, I like that trade a lot more now that I've thought about Indiana has Brogdon. So they do have something to build around with Brogdon, OG, Warren, and Sabonis. They're not going to get any big free agents anyway. You know, Indiana's not really a team to get big-time free agents. But if they could build around that team and get some good grade veterans to come in or whatever, I think that team will remain competitive. And Indiana reminds me a lot of Miami as far as the culture. Like, their culture, they just have a competitive culture over there right now. They don't have the most talented guys as far as – they don't really have a superstar. Thought Oladipo would be the superstar, but they don't really have a superstar, but they have a lot of really good guys that fit really well together, and they all work hard, and they just go out there and play ball. And even though they're not the most talented, sometimes their effort is what gets them a lot of wins, you know, with the good talent that they have and then their effort, and they just play harder than everybody else. They're young, you know. So, I really love that trade now that I think about Brogdon being in Indiana. I love that trade. And you might be able to convince Kyle Lowry to sign like a 2-year deal. Maybe, you know, call it quits in Indiana or whatever. Play for another 2 years, be that veteran presence. I mean, look at Giannis has him in Miami. He's still getting 1-year deals to be a player coach. I think Kyle Lowry over the next 2 to 3 years could be more than that. And he'd be a veteran. He'd be a veteran guy coming off the bench in a year or two anyway. In Indiana with having Malcolm Brogdon, and then if OG is the guy we think he could be before he got injured, then he'd be a really good guy. I don't know if he'll ever make an all-star game, but he'll be a really good player. And you don't know. Sometimes guys get in a situation like he goes to Indiana,
yeah,
and he's the and he becomes that guy. He don't become necessarily a consistent all-star, but he makes an all-star game or two because he becomes that guy, and the team takes him, and he's their guy. So that's also very possible.
That's what I was thinking, man. I'm gonna see, you know what I'm saying, if we can put this in the atmosphere. Maybe this be the trade that'll happen. I'd love to see that trade go down. But
that trade happen, I think you have to take full ownership. And if that trade happens or anything remotely close with those three teams, I believe you are plugged in with all three of those GMs if that trade happens.
Mm-hmm.
Have to be, because I haven't seen that, heard that, anything remotely close. I haven't heard either of those teams be involved. I haven't really heard Toronto being involved. I would imagine they might be at this point because, they said there's some Eastern Conference playoff teams and Western Conference playoff teams outside of Harden's list that they're talking to. So I'd imagine Toronto might be interested, and maybe Indiana is interested with not knowing what other playoff teams are there. Those are two playoff teams in the Eastern Conference. Mm-hmm. I think that would be, I think that would be an ideal trade. And if anything close to that happens, those three teams make a three-team trade. Harden ends up in Toronto. I'm giving all props to you. And you're gonna have to save this and take full-blown ownership that you called it before it happened.
Look, hey,
100%.
I'm gonna tweet this. I'm gonna tweet the photo out just to see what NBA Twitter got to say.
Yeah, and if they say anything, if they downplay it and talk bad about the trade and it goes through and it works out for all three teams, you just get to sit back and laugh and be like, you know what? I need to be hired at ESPN at this point.
Hey, let's keep things moving, bro. Of course, we talked about the Harden thing, talked about the trades.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about Giannis. You know what I'm saying? Our boy Giannis, he signed the extension, the richest contract in extension in league history.
Yeah.
He raking in that money. He gonna be in Milwaukee for a minute, it looks like. Got the Supermax. Just what you think about the deal? What you think about Giannis staying in Milwaukee?
I'm not surprised because the biggest thing with me is I don't know if it was more about loyalty to Milwaukee. He said all the right things. That's what you're supposed to say when you do sign long-term like that. Like, I love this city. They embrace me. I want to bring them a championship. That's what most guys do on their first team. Like, that's what they want to do. They want to bring that team that gave them opportunity a championship. But I think money had a lot to do with Giannis staying in Milwaukee. And I think, like, the time is clicking. Exactly. Like, and having the richest contract, that's something that's going to be broken in a few years by the next superstar. By the time Tatum gets his true veteran contract, those guys, they're going to break it. The contracts and the richest contract in history are starting to be broken every year or every couple of years at this point. You've seen Steph get one, and then Harden topped it. Wall got remotely close. So, but I think it was more about money. And I also think it's about, he is willing to give Milwaukee an opportunity, but I don't think Milwaukee has 5 years of opportunity to bring a championship with Giannis or build a championship team around Giannis. That's my biggest thing.
Right.
Is I think once he's eligible to be traded, I think it's possible if they haven't won a championship at that point, I think it's possible, Giannis might pull a Harden, not in the same manner, but be like, look, we didn't bring a championship. We don't look like we're getting one. And so ultimately I would like to be traded. So I think he's given him a 3-year window, but that 5-year deal secures that bag at the end of the day.
Okay. I see what you're saying. Because, Milwaukee mortgaged their future in Drew Holiday. They gave up, I believe, 3 first-round picks and a couple pick swaps. So this is the core: Holiday, Middleton, and Giannis. And I feel like if somebody's gonna get traded and they make a desperation move in a couple years, it doesn't work, they don't win it this year or next year, and it's year 3, it's probably getting Middleton. Middleton's the one probably getting moved or something. I don't know what you get for Middleton a couple years down the road from now, but this is basically this is the core. If they bring home a chip, this is gonna be the core. They don't have too much room to move to make changes.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's kind of the problem. I think with Milwaukee is they went all in to show Giannis. They went all in to reach this extension. But, I don't think they were really thinking clear 2, 3, 4 years down the line. And that's where you got to think with a guy like Giannis. is you do got to be thinking, okay, well, where is this going to leave us at building around Giannis the way we did 2, 3, 4 years from now? And I don't think it'll leave him at winning a championship because I don't know how good Middleton really is. Is he going to be any better than what he's been? I don't think so. I think this is the best. He might keep up this, how he's playing. He might keep this up for a couple of years, but I don't think he's going to be any better. You know, he's an all-star. He made an all-star team. I don't think he'll be any better than an all-star. You know, he's not a future superstar or anything like that. Drew Holiday is on the wrong side of 30, which, you know, he's like 31. So that makes a difference. Drew Holiday isn't going to be a guy. He's made borderline all-star. I mean, and that's even steep to say at this point. I don't know if Drew Holiday is really an all-star player. And especially that contract is big. You know, New Orleans, with everything he did and, you know, going on with his wife at that time, when they gave him that contract extension, he earned it. Maybe a little overpaid for him, but now Milwaukee really overpaid. And that's another thing that goes back. Just that's what hurts the Harden trade talks is guys like Paul George and Drew Holiday in trades were getting overpaid and overpriced.
Teams have raked in like 150% for what those guys are worth. You know what I'm saying? Like,
exactly. And that's kind of my point. And why Houston is so big is like, well, you know what? If a team like Milwaukee was willing to trade that much for Drew Holiday, then why can we not get double the value for James Harden? If they gave up their whole future for a Drew Holiday, then how can we not double that in value for James Harden? But at the same time, a lot of these teams coming into this year have questions. And so they'd rather those questions be answered and then visit the Harden situation. And I think Milwaukee, you know, before that trade, you know, there was talks of Milwaukee being interested in trading for James Harden. He put them on his list, but what does Milwaukee really have? Like you said, they have their core, but nobody on their core outside of Giannis is good enough to give up for Harden. Right. And they've already given up their future.
Up what, Middleton and Holiday? If you're trying to get
you don't have the draft picks to give up for that. And so that's where it becomes like you said, if they win a championship, this is their core. I almost don't see Milwaukee winning the championship. I don't see Giannis really being able to bring one in because, like, if he's in that 3-year window that a lot of these guys are, even though he signed for 5 years, the only way he does is if he plays out his 5-year contract and is able to win one after everybody else is out of their 3-year window. And I'm talking the Clippers, the Nets, the Lakers. And Milwaukee's included in that. The Miami Heat are included in that. You know, there's a lot of teams within the next 3 years that are like shooting for a championship. And so that's why I think with signing Giannis, I don't think he really brings a championship to Milwaukee.
Think the game changer for them to be able to win a chip is if they change their coach. Bud is a very good regular season coach. We've seen him do good things in Atlanta. We've seen him do the good things with the Bucks and have them be, you know, perennially the top team in the East. The thing with Bud, he doesn't make adjustments in the postseason. He still does the minute restrictions, has guys playing 32 minutes as starters, playoffs. We need Middleton and Giannis playing 40+. You know what I'm saying? The game
easily. That's what your stars do. Easily. LeBron takes minutes restrictions and plays 30 minutes in the regular season to play 45 to 47 minutes in the playoffs. You know, even guys like Kawhi Leonard, like, yeah, we talk about him, you know, sitting games and stuff, you know, and all that. But when it comes to playoffs, Kawhi Leonard out there majority of the game. Yeah. Paul George out there majority of the game. Those guys take that in the regular season. You can't – playoff basketball is different. Every game matters. And it leans – the NBA is not the NFL. It's not as much a team sport as like the NFL. You go as your superstar goes. And sometimes, yeah, you might be up 20 and you can afford Giannis to play 32 minutes, but you need him to continue rolling. And you don't need him sitting out, you know, and they're not blowing out teams by 20. That's another thing. And they're meeting their match because they're, like you said, there's no coaching adjustments. Bud isn't making coaching adjustments. And that's why you meet your match. You know, that's why the Clippers met the match with Denver and that's why Doc Rivers is gone. Coaching and adjustments. Now, granted, you know, I'm not going to put it all on Doc Rivers with the Clippers situation, but I'm just saying, like, adjustments is the big.
When you got Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, somebody got to take the blame. And those guys, they under contract. So it's going to fall on Doc.
Exactly. It rolls on your star players. And that's the thing is outside of your coach, it's about your superstar. And so ultimately, you got to have Giannis rolling. And he can't be playing minutes restrictions in the second round of the Eastern Conference playoffs. I don't care who they playing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if they're up 3-0, 3-1, maybe in game 4 or 5, you can, 32 minutes. But other than that, it's 40-plus minutes a night every night. Almost every night, unless you're up 20 in the fourth quarter. And you even still have them sitting there, keep your shirt off and keep your jersey on, because if it gets to 12, you going back in. And so that's the thing. Without those adjustments, it's like he coaches scared. Like he's almost afraid for Giannis to get hurt. He's preparing early to go to the conference final. Well, we need Giannis in the conference finals. Well, you got to get there. Well, we need Giannis in the finals. You got to get there.
That's the only thing with Bud. If he can learn to make those adjustments, I think the Bucks have a chance of making it out. But that's something me and my homeboys have talked about. We think if they make that jump, it's because Bud isn't the coach anymore. So I think that'll be the thing that would take this core over the top of if they make a coaching change. But
yeah, that's definitely a possibility.
Now, just what you think this means for the league? Me personally, I don't know if he's going to win with Milwaukee, but I just like seeing him stay. I just like seeing somebody be loyal, you know what I'm saying, and sticking to their team. So, what do you think this does for the league when we've seen year in, year out star players bounce to other franchises?
Well, it definitely helps because you take away Giannis, and Milwaukee is a small market team. They're still a small market team, but their selling point of getting anybody to Milwaukee is Giannis. So it makes those small market teams really good. The same way like with Westbrook and Bill in Washington, like that's a small market team. They're not known to get free agents. So it keeps the balance in the NBA. It keeps the balance. I think the NBA is well balanced right now. There's a lot of good teams, a couple great teams, but a lot of really good.
We're back with the duos. It seemed like it's
exactly, and that's what I love.
Yeah,
that's why I don't want to see. That's why I don't want to see Harden with KD and Kyrie, because I like the balance of the NBA right now. There's a lot of duos, a lot. And even what we consider big threes aren't really. It's not the LeBron, Wade, and Bosh big three. It's not the KG, Ray Allen, Paul Pierce big threes. It's like two. It's the duo and a really good third. Yeah. And so ultimately, I just love the balance of the NBA right now. And so I think Giannis staying remains with that balance. Now, there's other teams he could have went to. He could have played this year out, tested free agency. There's other teams he could have went to that would have kept the balance of the NBA. But with Milwaukee being a small market team and still being really good, it means a lot when those small market teams are bringing in money. Because ultimately, Milwaukee is a primetime TV team right now with Giannis. Mm-hmm. You take Giannis off that team, and they're a league pass team. The only way you watch Milwaukee is league pass or like Tuesday night because nobody good's playing. Right, like it's one of those NBA TV on Tuesday. Yeah, like you're gonna have to follow your Bucks on. You need the NBA league pass or at least the team pass to catch their games. Well, right now they're a primetime team, and so. It balances where the money's coming in, but it also just keeps the balance in the NBA. Like I said, I just love where it's at. Like you said, we're back to duos. We're real deep at duos. There's about 20 teams with really good duos, let alone those teams on the outside are like they have up-and-coming duos that we could see being a problem. And the NBA is going to be really great this year. And Giannis remaining to stay is a message of loyalty, and I don't read too much into the loyalty factor with that because money talks.
You read into the money factor.
Yeah, like money talks. If I'm taking it, he wasn't going to get anywhere near that. He's, 170, 180 if he tested free agency. He got 220. He's going to be making like, $250 million over the next 6 years, almost 260. That's enough incentive to stay when I know we're right there from winning the championship anyway. Milwaukee showed that they're willing to put talent around them.
Shoot, if I just start hitting threes, who the hell gonna stop us?
Yeah, I mean, if anything, he probably like, I'm gonna take that money and critique myself and where I could improve to ultimately see where we could go to win the championship. Milwaukee's right there. Like, it's not like they were far off from winning the championship. They have been the best team in the Eastern Conference the past 2 years as far as record goes, and even just play-wise. Like, Milwaukee has been the favorite heading into the playoffs to come out the East for the past 2 years, and possibly could be the favorite coming out the East this year, even with everything the Eastern Conference got going on. So I do like that Milwaukee. I mean, I like that Giannis stayed in Milwaukee, and anytime a small market team is able to contain their superstar, it does make great for the NBA.
For sure. The last thing I want to look at real quick, it's preseason hoops going on right now. We done talked about, in the past, we talked about the rookies leading up to the draft. We finally been able to see you guys hit the floor. Just who stood out to you? You know, what rookies you've been liking, what you've seen? Not trying to take too much from the preseason, but what you liking?
Patrick Williams in Chicago. With him going number 4 to Chicago, a lot of people were questioning it. Outside of guys who really know Florida State and their program, a lot of guys were questioning Patrick Williams and why, they felt like there were a lot more talented guys that Chicago could have went with. And that's because in this draft, it was either names or bust. In a lot of people's eyes that didn't really study this draft, haven't been paying attention to college basketball. I know their numbers have been going down lately because it seems like a depletion in talent, but then it's right back up. If anybody been keeping up with college basketball, it's like this might have been a down year in the draft this past year, but there's a lot of talent coming in this draft next year. So I think Patrick Williams has impressed me. And I don't want to be like such a homer or be such a hype beast, but I haven't really been disappointed with the play of LaMelo Ball. Like, he hasn't played the greatest. I get that. But that's because the expectation in the bar was set too high for LaMelo Ball as a rookie. Like, we've been following him for years, since he's been in high school with him and his brother, and they were winning championships. And, LeVar and his antics, which I've always supported, because if ain't nobody, if anything, man, it's a black man loving his sons and believing in his sons. And, okay, he said he's going to be – his son's better than LeBron and whatever. That's fine. You know what? That's what you're supposed to think. Especially when you have that much
rational confidence in your kids. You're supposed to be a supporter. Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it, and sometimes it's entertainment. He's made money. He's brought money to his family by doing some of that stuff. But I haven't been disappointed with LaMelo Ball. He makes rookie mistakes. It's only the preseason. And the other difference is I think guys are after LaMelo a little more than the rest of these rookies as far as these vets guarding LaMelo. And he's going to receive that tough play all year this year for the simple fact his name, his hype coming in. They're going to have to show little man. He's bringing it upon himself, put that $500,000 grill in his mouth, flexing, whatever. But I'm not disappointed. I know what LaMelo's going to be able to do. I don't think he's going to play.
Tonight he had 18 points and 5 assists. You know what I'm saying?
And that's why I say, like, he's not playing bad. You can look at the numbers, and if you're just a guy who judges numbers and doesn't watch games, doesn't look at the film and hasn't caught much of the Hornets, so you're going to be like, oh, well, he was 2 for 10 the other night. And, the emphasis on the highlights, which means if you're a highlight guy and you just look at the stat sheet and don't watch the game, all they were talking about was the 1 3 that he hit and looked at the Raptors bench. But a guy that young, if they were trash talking, it built him some confidence. And so ultimately I'm impressed with Patrick Williams, and I'm not disappointed in LaMelo Ball. And another guy is Anthony Edwards. I haven't been disappointed with him either. He's been playing pretty good, nothing great, but there wasn't nobody in this draft who I just thought was going to come and stand out and be a great player off the rip. But I think Anthony Edwards just showed some signs of, like, he might be that dude in Minnesota. Like, he might be the guy who he might be the one option as far as with the ball in his hands, because Cat's a center. And so ultimately, who's going to have to get him the ball, D'Lo or Anthony Edwards? But he might be the main –
wants to get him involved, because D'Lo, he has the ball in his hands. He'd be looking for his own shot. So that's why I be thinking might hold back Ant from really being what he can be in Minnesota, is how this D'Lo Ant thing plays out.
Yeah, but I think he'll be able to overcome that. The man is just uber talented. Like, it's almost like I don't know how hard he's really worked up to this point. I'm not questioning his work ethic.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I don't think he's done that NBA work ethic yet. And don't let him do that. Like, don't let him adapt hard working abilities and continue to improve, because he's already just that talented when he steps on the court. And so for him to ultimately get better over these next couple of years, I think Anthony Edwards, in my comparison for him is crazy. It was D-Wade. Like, he reminded me a lot of what D-Wade was coming out of college. Not as good, but if you just look at the frame, the way they're built, and the way they play basketball, how he's a rebounding guard, he's a shot blocking guard, the same way D-Wade was. I don't think he's going to have a D-Wade career. I don't think he's going to go down as the third or fourth best shooting guard in history. But just player comparison as far as watching him play at Georgia and how I viewed him and how I viewed D-Wade coming out of Marquette way back in the day, I think there's a lot of similarities. And even he compared himself. They asked him, and he said, I think I'm a lot like D-Wade. And D-Wade approved that message. D-Wade also approved the message of saying Dante Exum reminds him a lot of him. But ultimately, I think Anthony Edwards is a lot more talented than that. So, those are kind of the three guys where I'm not disappointed with LaMelo, and I'm impressed with Anthony Edwards with being the number one pick. And I'm definitely impressed with Patrick Williams, because I don't think there were expectations. I think, he was already considered a bust and people counted him out. But they just don't realize how that Florida State system works, which is where I know you're going to go with it next.
Oh, yeah. You already know who my guy is. Well, I got a few guys, but my number one guy, Devin Vassell, man, he's been doing his thing with the Spurs. Just fitting right in, bro. You know what I'm saying? Just doing everything on both sides of the ball. Playing good on defense, forcing steals. He played against Harden the other night, played some good defense on Harden. Finished, I think he had a game with like 3 steals, just being active, being a problem, a pest on defense. On offense, first game had 12 points, knocked down 2 for 4 from 3. And you just watch him, he looks like he belongs on the court. He's not, he's not out there playing scared, making good shots, making good reads. I just can't wait to see where his game is going to be 4 years from now. That's what I'm banking. I thought it was going to take, be an adjustment period right now. And he wasn't going to be all that his first season. I thought he'd be solid. But it's like he's going to be a good player. So, we'll see how he is 4 years from now. You already mentioned LaMelo. Like you mentioned, you said if you watch the games, you see the impact he's having. And he's making Miles Bridges better. He's making the whole team better, just getting guys involved, whether it's a quick pass up court, making sure the ball's clicking, making special passes in the pick and roll. You just see the natural talent just oozing out of him. So I'm liking what I'm seeing from LaMelo. And I got to give a shout out to Isaac Okoro. I wasn't a big Okoro person, but he's been playing well with the Cavs. He having some big games, the game-winning layup on that fast break. But he's attacking, getting to the rack, which we know he was going to do. But he's also not shy and scared to shoot the three. And that's what I like seeing. If he can get that 3 ball right, the sky's the limit for Okoro, because he has that NBA body.
Yeah, 100%. Like, and with your guy, Devin Vassell, the biggest thing about him is it was a perfect fit moving from Florida State to San Antonio. That's kind of my biggest thing for him is, I kind of looked into him once we linked and talked a lot about him, but it's a perfect fit because of how Florida State uses their talented guys. Sometimes, like Patrick Williams, they get hidden within the system.
It's an equal opportunity.
Exactly. But so is San Antonio. And he's being coached by, arguably the best coach in the league. He was at one point. If you don't feel like he is now, he's one of the greatest coaches of all time. And it's an equal opportunity system over there in San Antonio also. And so he'll be able to continue to grow and develop. San Antonio does develop talent. They take some of those lower tier guys, those no names, and they make them a name. And then, they also have DeJounte Murray and a couple guys over there, Lonnie Walker. But I do think, it was just a perfect transition to the league and go from an equal opportunity system from a great coach over there at Florida State to going to San Antonio, which is kind of the same type of system. You get yours where you can, especially if you're not a superstar. Kawhi Leonard didn't become a superstar overnight. Outside of Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili didn't become a superstar, all-star player overnight, 6th man of the year overnight. Tony Parker wasn't a star point guard overnight.
Right.
But within that system, there's questions. Maybe Tony Parker wouldn't have been Tony Parker anywhere else, but he was in San Antonio, and I think that could fit. The same for Devin Vassell is maybe he becomes really good and becomes an all-star caliber player. And maybe he wouldn't do that anywhere but San Antonio. But I think I just think it's a perfect transition going from Florida State to San Antonio. So I definitely think he lucked up going there, but he's also a really talented guy. And like I said, you just don't see how talented some of these guys coming out of Florida State are because it's more of a system. It's a lot of screens and like a Kentucky
you have a role
offense.
And you do your job.
Exactly, and that's it. But that's kind of the expectation of San Antonio. And then as you develop, your role gets bigger. Your role gets bigger. By year 4, you're our key starter. You might be our guy, you might be that guy, or you're a very key starter, which is very well what he could be in the next 3 to 4 years. And I think that's where this draft, there's not a lot of excitement because we're waiting to see where these guys are 3 or 4 years from now. We're not really expecting any of these guys to make such an impact where we're like, okay, there's no bona fide stars in this draft outside of LaMelo. I mean, LaMelo was a star before, he's famous and a star before he even played, even took a dribble in an NBA game. So I do think Vassell is going to be, I think he might be one of the better players in the draft when it's all said and done. When 5, 6, 7 years from now, we look back at this not so talented draft, I think he'll be one of the top 3 players coming out of this draft.
You already know that's what I'm thinking. And like you mentioned with San Antonio, that's a good point with, they're going to just let him be whatever he's going to become. They're going to let him just go out there and continue to do what he's doing now, but also grow into more because they're in that transition period. LA, DeRozan, those guys aren't going to be there forever. So they're going to let these young guys like Lonnie Walker, like DeJounte Murray, like Devin Vassell, if you're going to be that man, show us. You have all the opportunity, play ball, and if you become that guy, we're going to let you be that guy up next. So that's a good point.
Yeah, 100%.
So, and that's everything I got for you, Mo. Man, I appreciate chopping it up with you. It's always good talking hoops. We talking hoops in the group chat all the time. It's good to do it.
Oh, yeah, of course, man. Like I said, I appreciate you for having me on, man. This was it's always exciting to talk hoops with people, let alone, we definitely going to have a lot of things in the works that, we'll figure a lot of stuff out. You'll be a guest back on mine soon. NBA season starts officially on the 22nd. So I know, with Christmas Day hoops and everything like that, a lot of being on break and having some downtime, we'll definitely be able to link back up and discuss probably the first week of the NBA season. So I'm definitely excited for future projects that we're going to get cooking up and working on.
Oh yeah. And I'm gonna bust y'all ass in fantasy basketball too. That starts.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't like my team like that. Not gonna lie. I did until about 10 minutes after I drafted. Evaluated my team. I don't like my team that much. I think it's good. I don't think it's great. Yeah, I've even been looking at the point of what could be my trade value for Giannis. I don't like my team that much. I'm looking at I think I can make it deeper and a little more. Trying to trade Giannis in this fantasy basketball.
Hey, what's up?
It's something I'm thinking about.
I take him.
It's something I'm thinking about. Trust and believe. When I'm looking at everybody's roster and being like, what do I want? What's my value? And, I'm not gonna give him the James Harden value. I want your future. But I'm looking. I don't with having that first pick and being able to take Giannis. I told you I don't like the first pick. I don't like it.
Yeah, you did say that. Hey, we'll see. You know what I'm saying? We'll check back in. We'll tap back in. I'll see if I can get Giannis up off you.
Yeah, we'll talk.
For sure.
We'll talk.
But yeah, man, it's another episode of Check Up with Chris Bolton. Be sure to check out Mo's podcast, UpNFlamez Pod. It's on Spotify, Apple, all wherever you check out your podcast. We got Mo got you. He's doing good things over there. Check out all the guys with OTB, Off the Ball Network. We making it happen. We got a whole bunch of good podcasts. Whatever sports you're trying to check out, you need some good analysis on, some entertainment, all that. We got you. NBA, football, college, pro. It don't matter. Off the ball, we're doing it. So
100%.
Check out all the guys' work. Appreciate y'all listening. Be sure to leave a 5-star review. Leave some reviews, some comments, and That's it. This has been another episode of Check It with Chris Bolton. I'm Chris Bolton. That's Mo Murphy. We'll holla at you.